Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. I am Brian Nemhauser. You can find me and all the things we do on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram at Hawk Blogger. And you can also listen to the audio version of this show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you like to get your audio podcasts. If you don't mind giving us a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify, really helps and I really appreciate it. And you can also get the ad-free version of this show on audio, at least, at patreon.com/hawkblogger. I know not everyone loves the ads. I know I don't really like ads, but it's part of how I am able to do this. So if you really don't like them, patreon.com/hawkblogger is where you can get rid of the audio ads and get access to the Discord server and a bunch of other cool stuff, including when HB Ticks makes its return for next season, get verified there so people know you are a Seahawks fan to either buy or sell. Now, I have so many different ways I could take the show today. I was kind of, part of the reason I'm starting late today is I found myself going down the rabbit hole of different paths I could take with this show. And the one that I think is probably on most of our minds is what's going on with the running back position? Like, what's the deal there? Because as this show goes live right now at 9:46 a.m. Pacific time on March 12th, a lot of running backs have left the market. In fact, I can share my screen real quick and we can look at the list of running backs that are unfortunately no longer options for the Seahawks. And I'll bring this up here. You can look at it together. Here we go. So let's do this in full screen and we'll zoom in a little bit for all of you so it's a little bit bigger. I think that's about the size that people like. And you could see on the right, the running backs that have signed. Ken Walker, we all know and love, and is now in Kansas City. And by the way, I got a big kick out of the fact that Ken gets off the private jet in Kansas City to sign with the Chiefs wearing a black and silver John Madden t-shirt. I have a feeling he doesn't really know, or maybe he didn't put 2 and 2 together, but to wear a Raiders hero shirt to sign with an AFC West Chiefs team was pretty funny, at least in my book. But anyway, Ken Walker is on his way to Kansas City. He's already there. Breece Hall, franchised by the Jets. Travis Etienne signed with the hometown New Orleans Saints. J.K. Dobbins back with the Broncos. Javonte Williams back with the Cowboys. Kenneth Gainwell to the Bucks. Rico Dowdle to the Steelers. Tyler Algier, my free agent crush, to the Arizona Cardinals. Chris Rodriguez Jr. yesterday came on the market and off the market in like an hour. Went to the Jacksonville Jaguars to be reunited with Liam Cohen. Keaton Mitchell, another one of my free agent crushes, came on the market yesterday, was not tendered by the Ravens, off the market today. Signs a multi-year, 2-year, $11.25 million deal with the Chargers. And that one's an interesting one because the offensive coordinator there is Mike McDaniel. Everybody who loves Devin Achane and what he's done in Miami should pay attention to the fact that the guy who made him that kind of player in the NFL chose Keaton Mitchell to come in. And I've seen some people online like, why are people so obsessed with Keaton Mitchell? I'm like, because he's a diamond in the rough and probably a really good value. And the fact that a guy that has not had the most healthy NFL career or a long NFL career goes out and gets a contract that is almost the same APY as Tyler Algier and Rico Dowdle should tell you how the NFL sees Keaton Mitchell. So at least one team. That was a bummer. He's off the market. Isaiah Pacheco went to the Lions, off the market. So that's a lot of names that are off the market. We'll talk here in a second about, well, who does that leave? Who does that leave? And there's some names that I'm gonna name, and you guys are gonna be like, "Wait, gross! No, I don't want to talk about that. Like, I don't like that option." But we're at the point where we've kind of got to stare it in the eye. And I think this is just maybe the biggest open question for this Seahawks team, considering the fact that the Super Bowl MVP, arguably their most valuable offensive player for the last half of the season, and definitely the run through the playoffs, left. Ken Walker's no longer here. His replacement was going to be Zach Charbonnet. Has an ACL injury. Don't know when he's going to be available. So this is a spot that was overloaded with talent and now is a big fat question mark. So we're going to talk about that. But sorry, getting calls bothering me. We'll kind of go through the options, and some of them are already on the team. So we'll talk about that as well. I've put in some question marks to people I trust around the league about some players that we haven't talked as much about in detail. And I'll tell you, I was reading while I was talking from one of those people had responded back to me. So yeah, we will talk about some of those options. I will also just give you guys some updated news. Let's start there before we get into the topic of the day. The news is, first and foremost, from a Seahawks perspective. I can bring this back up. We'll go to the team dashboard. Look at the Seahawks. All right. As of this morning, the Seattle Seahawks have agreed to terms with Brady Russell. He is returning to the Seahawks. Did I not update this? Hold on. Let's check this out. Did I not update Brady Russell is back? I did not. Seattle Seahawks 2 years. I don't think we have the money yet. So, yes, Brady Russell, special teams ace, backup tight end, backup fullback. He is back with this team for 2 years. He was a restricted free agent that the team did not tender, and his tender would have been about $3.5 million. So my guess, and I talked to you guys about this yesterday with Delmar Robinson. I think he plays for the Chargers, or Delshawn Phillips, excuse me. He signed a 2-year deal for $7.5 million that averaged 3.75. He is also a all-pro special teams player. I'm guessing Brady's deal is going to come in around this, probably a little under. It wouldn't surprise me if it's 2 years, $6 million, 6.5, something like that. It could be more. And the fact of the matter is, report was that there were other teams interested, but that Brady Russell wanted to come back to Seattle. So good news there. That you've got another key part of your team back in the fold. Well, who does that leave? You have got Chaz Surratt, also a special teams guy, Cody White, receiver, Brandon Peely, nose tackle, Derek Young, wide receiver, Shane Lemieux, who never played a snap for the Seahawks, wasn't even on the roster, was just on the ready squad, and the Seahawks did not. He went on IR. So I wouldn't worry too much about Shane Lemieux's availability. But the rest of these guys did play snaps, varying levels of roles for the team. And of these guys, I really do expect Brandon Peely back. I think that would be the biggest concern of the guys left. If Brandon Peely goes elsewhere, I think that you've got now a bigger hole at nose tackle than I think you'd like to have. Although I do like some of the guys they've got on the roster. Tariq Young, I would expect he's looking for opportunities elsewhere. I think the wide receiver room is pretty deep, and I think he would love to really get a chance to play at receiver. If there aren't other teams that are interested, he might come back anyway. Cody White, I really really blossomed as not only a receiver, but as a special teams player. I'm sure he's looking for opportunities to kind of get a chance to really break into the room. And Sherratt, we'll just see what happens there. I think he was an underrated special teams player, but you know, I wouldn't like assume that he's coming back, I guess is the way I'd look at it with the guys left. So as it stands, look at this list of guys that the Seahawks could have lost but kept. That's a long list. Charles Cross, Rashid Shaheed, Abe Lucas, Josh Jobe, Drake Thomas, Jake Bobo, Chris Stoll, the long snapper, Ty Okada, George Halani, Josh Jones, Brady Russell, AJ Finley. AJ Finley, the safety, if we didn't talk about this yesterday, he also re-signed with the team. Could have been a restricted free agent. They didn't tender it. They've lost Ken Walker, Boye Mafe, Kobe Bryant, and Tariq Woolen. All right. So when you look at the big picture here for the Seahawks, how many starters have they lost? They lost Ken Walker and Kobe Bryant. Those are two guys I would consider starters. Tariq Woolen started some games, but generally Josh Jobe had jumped him in the depth chart, and they split reps most of the season. Boye Mafe, I think, is at best the third edge rusher of four, and in some ways the fourth of four. Good player. All these guys are going to be missed in varying degrees. I've seen our good friend Griff Sturgeon fighting the fight about how big of a deal it is that Tariq Woolen left. I love Griff. I don't know, as someone who defends Tariq Woolen, I think I saw Griff say it was almost like if the Broncos lost Patrick Surtain. I don't know if I go that far, Griff. I do think you're going to notice, and it's going to be an issue to not have Tariq Woolen, but I don't think it's quite that extreme. So that's kind of the state of what's happened relative to the Seahawks. Now, there are some other bits of news that are worth, well, one, I would say, I've talked to you a lot about Max Crosby. This is not going to be the Max Crosby show again. I'm sure you guys are sick of that topic. The whole NFL world lost their shit last night when Max Crosby tweeted out, he's back and, football God spoke and he's listening or whatever. Like, then it was said that the Raiders have told teams that Crosby's not available, that they're not going to trade him. I'm here to tell you, and this is not for my purposes, this is my honest assessment. Max Crosby's absolutely available. What they're doing right now is they are rebuilding his trade value. There's no reason from their perspective to rush into a trade right now. They've already gone through free agency. Unless there's a move that they can't make by having Max Crosby with them, why rush? And I think they've made their first wave of moves. I don't think the Raiders feel like they've got an urgency. The most likely outcome here is that the Raiders, if I was in their shoes, I would play this all the way up to the draft, even draft day itself, because that's the day that a team that's making a trade will know who's available at their pick, and they can decide, actually, the guy that we wanted got picked, so I'm willing to trade this first rounder to the Raiders that maybe I wouldn't have. And it's also an opportunity for the Raiders to know exactly who's available at the pick that they're going to receive. If they don't do it by the draft, then it starts to be like, okay, I'll start to take them seriously, that they're maybe thinking that they're going to keep him at least to the deadline or something like that. Because obviously, if you want first round picks and you want the maximum trade value in draft capital, kind of helps to have those picks before the draft or like during the draft. So that to me is the deadline essentially for when I think they're going to try to build back up Max Crosby's value. There were some rumors that the Bears and the Bengals were closing in on a deal for Crosby. So we'll see. We'll see. But I will just say that's from my perspective, I am not convinced. I am not convinced that Max Crosby's off the market permanently. So that's one piece there. The other thing that I wanted to share that might be of interest to you guys. There's a great tweet, or an interesting tweet, I think, from Nick Corti, who does all the compensatory picks formulas for Over the Cap. And the interesting thing, by the way, before I get off the Crosby thing, Andrew Brandt had a tweet that I sent back out, was Raiders, quote, "We're not trading Crosby." Translation, quote, "Offers have dried up." So I think Andrew and I see it the same way. All right. So where is it? All right. So Nick Corti totaled the picks currently for 2027, the 2027 draft, not 2026, the 2027. And his list has the Seahawks with the most picks in the 2027 draft, tied with the Eagles with 12. And that includes 4 comp picks. So the Seahawks, as it stands, I think I said yesterday that I thought the Riq Woolen compensatory pick would be a 6th. According to Nick, he thinks it's a 5th. So that would mean the Seahawks have a comp 4 for Boye Mafe, 3 5th-round comp picks for Walker, Walker and Kobe Bryant and Tariq Woolen. That's not nothing. And as Jeff talked about before, like, you can trade those picks. This is supposed to be a really, really good draft class next year. And so my understanding, I just don't think the Seahawks think this is a very good draft class this year. And I think their actions are proving that. And then I think they see real value in last year's draft class, where they had like 20 plus rookies, whether on the roster or in their ready squad. And I think they see value in the 2027 draft. So I think they are gaming the system a little bit about stocking up last year and preparing to reload again next year. Not everyone's going to like that. Not everyone's going to agree with it, but I'm just telling you my interpretation of what's going on with their strategy. Related to that, there is a date that you should know. Might not be exciting to you, but the first Monday after the draft every year, which this year is April 27th, is when you can sign any player without it affecting the comp pick formula. That's like a month and a half from now. It's after the draft. So the Seahawks, this gets back to the running back conversation. It is not out of the realm of possibilities that the Seahawks are going to slow play this thing all the way until after the draft. Let's talk about that possibility for a second. If you're John Schneider, you have more than 2, but let's simplify it and say 2 approaches you could take to addressing the running back position. Door number 1, take a player in free agency, either sign your own or get a player right away, cross it off your list, don't have to worry about it. That is door number 1. That door is not closed, but it's pretty dang close to being shut, right? We'll talk about some of the players available, but pretty close. Door number 2, by the way, door number 1, let's finish door number 1. So door number 1 is you take a player in free agency, you sign someone right away, and then you see who you can get in the draft to complement, and you call it a day. All right, that's door number 1. Door number 2 is you almost go the opposite or the inverse. You flip it. And you say, I'm going to see who we get in the draft, and then I'm going to go and comb the free agency and trade market after that. And the benefit of that approach is that you know the draft pick that you've added. Maybe you get a Jadarian Price. Maybe you get you know, someone else that you like, Mike Washington Jr., right? Like whoever that player is. Or you don't, and now you know I've got to go address this spot. The other benefit of door number 2 is that other teams are going to have added running backs, both through free agency and then through the draft. So that will create overloads on certain rosters at the running back position and potentially make certain guys available that were not available before, not available now, but might be available then, and be available for lesser prices because you're certainly not giving up a 2024 draft. I say 2024, 2026 draft pick for a player because the draft's already happened, right? So now you're into the comp pick world where it doesn't matter who you add. If you make a trade and you're in a situation now where you know you've got 12 2027 draft picks, you could start to trade some of those picks for players that might not have been options before. I'll admit, I've not combed through all the rosters for who the ripple effects, who the butterfly effect could be of who's available. There's one name we've talked about. I'll get into in a second, but that's just another strategy here. And so for those of you, and maybe I'm among them, who have like a little anxiety, a little anxiousness about like, you just had the Super Bowl MVP and a really, really good running back leave. You've got another really, really good running back who's injured. Can we please have somebody to like latch onto and feel good about? That's a tough path. You have to hold your water. You have to hold your water and you have to wait for all of those things to happen. So all those 2 doors are still open. And I'm not saying here it's Thursday, March 12th, day 4 of free agency, that the Seahawks aren't going to sign anybody at the running back position between now and April 27th. But it's at least a question. And I think it's something that we have to start at least considering as you look at what the plan might be for this position. So with that kind of stage set, where do we want to go? I one path here to consider is that the Seahawks actually don't see this as a big position of need the way other people do. One scenario here that I think a lot of people, including me, are going to be uncomfortable with, if true, is that they don't see this as a problem, that they like the guys that they've got on the roster already. All right. Let's at least give ourselves a moment to explore what that would look like. Who are the guys that are currently on the roster or available? And what do we think about those players? I'm going to start with not the guy that most people would. I'm going to start with Velus Jones. And this is a really interesting player who I'm reading a little bit about his time in Chicago from one of my connections there. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Sorry. I'm reading and talking. So Velus Jones was a 3rd round pick for the Bears out of Tennessee. And the interesting thing, there's a number of interesting things about Velus Jones, to be honest. Velus Jones was pretty much exclusively a receiver in college. He played with Sam Darnold at USC, so they've got history together. I talked to Velus about that. And then he transferred to Tennessee in 2020. But he had a total of 15 rushing attempts for 59 yards in college. He had 120 receptions for 1,434 yards. 800 of those yards came in his senior year with Tennessee. So, implication there is this guy is kind of a receiver that has been converted to a running back. And the kind of interesting path there is there's another player that was considered an option for the Seahawks, rumored as a trade option, which was David Montgomery of the Detroit Lions. He has since been traded to the Houston Texans, but he used to be primarily a receiver. And so that's another guy that has kind of followed that path. I'm looking through here to make sure I'm not misremembering. I could almost swear David Montgomery was a receiver. I thought he came in as a receiver. I might be thinking of somebody else. I could have sworn he came in as a receiver. I must be thinking of somebody else. I'm only seeing running back listed for him, so maybe I'm wrong. Anyway, there have been other players that have converted from receiver to running back. And the thing with Velus Jones is when he went to the Bears, he was primarily like his rookie year, he had 9 rushes for 103 yards, which is pretty good. That's 11 yards a carry. He also had 7 receptions for 107 yards, which is 15 yards a reception. He's an explosive player. And he also is a returner. So he also is somebody that was involved in the return game. But word is on, like, if you ask, is someone saying it is Ty Montgomery? That makes sense. Thank you. Yes, Ty Montgomery was the guy I'm thinking of. But if you ask people in Chicago about Velus Jones, they don't have nice things to say. And the word kind of out of there is that it wasn't necessarily all his fault. He was a high draft pick who was a little bit older. And being that he was a 3rd rounder, he just didn't have a lot of production or impact. And he made some bad mistakes where he dropped a ball. He had 5 fumbles. And then he kind of talked trash about Chicago, I guess, this year, that he was still playing. And I think this was about the fact that he was still playing for the Seahawks, right? And I don't think Bears fans really liked the fact that he was on the practice squad and not really part of why the team was getting where they were getting. And so I think Bears fans were not a huge fan of Velus Jones. And one thing I will say in getting to know him a little bit is he is loud, he is brash, confident. I think nobody I knew got into more arguments about shadow boxing in the locker room than Velus Jones. I joked with him about that as they were cleaning out their lockers. All that said, he looked electric in Atlanta when he got a couple touches. End of the game, garbage time, take it for what it's worth. But I told you guys about this the other day. It's very, very small sample and in a very like garbage time point of the day. But Velus Jones had a 78% breakaway percentage, which was number 1 in the NFL among running backs last year. Now, again, that's with 4 rushing attempts. So, but he had 4 carries for 32 yards, 8 yards a carry. I think there's some juice to him. And the fact that he came up as a receiver could be interesting. So I'm not going to spend too much more time on Velus Jones, but I am interested in him. Then you go to George Halani, who I'm kind of surprised how many people are really down on George Halani. I feel like George Halani is a little bit of a hidden gem. And George Halani last year, he didn't have great numbers. 22 carries, 73 yards, 3.3 yards per carry. Had 2 catches for 15 yards. I thought he had some great moments. Special teams wise, but also as a runner, making people miss. And I think what people forget about George Halani is that he was the starter over Ashton Genty. And I've talked to George about that. And Ashton Genty's a really close friend and he roots for him and all that stuff. But George Halani is a complete back. He does everything well. He's a good runner inside or out. He's a good receiver. He's a good blocker. You could do a lot worse than George Halani in the backfield. What he has not yet proven really is can he be a breakaway player? And as we look, I haven't actually looked at his college numbers. I'm about to pull those up now. But I don't know. Like he was a high yards per attempt guy in college. He over 5 yards per attempt in 4 of his 5 seasons. The other season it was 4.8, so not bad. The guy finds the end zone quite a bit. Trying to see if they've got his long runs. I'm not seeing those easily accessible. That's okay. So I think George Halani is probably number 1 on your depth chart. That seems to make sense. What's going on? The other thing that I would just say, like Zach Charbonnet, they might feel like he's going to be available sooner than people realize. That could be part of what's going on here. And they might feel like they don't want to block him from the depth chart. I can't wrap my head quite around that. Like ACL injury late in the year. I don't think you can plan on that. And I don't think they will. From there, you go to a guy like Cam Akers. Cam Akers was also brought in late last year. And the interesting thing with Cam Akers is, he's the vet of the crew in that regard. And he has another kind of interesting low volume, low sample size, small sample size thing to hang his hat on. Cam Akers was 4th in the NFL in yards per contact after contact per attempt. Let's say that again. Yards after contact per attempt. He averaged 4.8 yards per contact after attempt for the Seahawks last year. Only 5 rushes. So I'm not going to try to tell you this is hang your hat on it. But this is another guy that the team might feel like he has been a starting back in the NFL. That has happened. He has had years where he's had, 104 carries, 188 carries. He's played in a Super Bowl as a running back, 145 carries. He has never been a big yards after contact thing for what it's worth. He's been like 2.9, 2.8, 2.3. I don't know if I'd really put too much in stock into that. He is not really a breakaway runner. Although his time in 2024 with Houston and Minnesota, he did have a 36% breakaway percentage. That's percentage of runs that were longer than 15 yards. So that's actually pretty good. His other years, 20%. He had a 29% year in 2020. He is 27 years old. He's not that old, even though he's been in the league since 2020. He's not that old. This is a guy that they also might feel like we can get by with George Halani and Cam Akers and Velus Jones until Zach Charbonnet is healthy. It's possible. I know you don't like the answer, but I'm just telling you it's possible. The other guys on their roster really would be Jacardier Wright, who I thought had a really nice camp and a great preseason until he got hurt. And so we don't know exactly where he is. And then Kenny McIntosh, who has the most loyal, devoted following among Seahawks fans for a guy that has had, I mean, I'm going to look at it here. How many carries has Kenny McIntosh had in his career? This is a 7th round pick. He had 31 attempts in 2024 for 172 yards, 5.5 yards per carry. That's good. That's good. But it's also 31 rushing attempts in his career and 2 serious injuries. But he's a good player. Like, he's an interesting player for sure. So if they feel good about that, I just named all these guys and gave you reasons why each one of them might be more interesting than the average fan would think. And keep in mind, like, the Seahawks have seen, John Schneider has seen Thomas Rawls be a really, really good starting running back as an undrafted free agent. He's seen some of these guys, Justin Forsett and others, Alex Collins, RIP, but like, he's seen some lower rounds or undrafted free agent guys be pretty damn good as starters. So that could be part of what's going through his mind. But there's other possibilities. So that's kind of the in-house possibilities. Let's look at the external free agents that are left, and then we'll talk a little bit about who could be trade potential options. But before I do that, I got some really crazy news yesterday. News I never expected to hear in my lifetime. The book, We Did Not Care, the book I wrote, is a New York Times bestseller. What the heck? It is so wild to me. Number 5 on the New York Times bestseller list for nonfiction. I cannot believe I'm saying that. And honestly, I just want to thank all of you. So many of you told me that you bought the book. I'm so appreciative. It is like, I've been kind of just having a smile about it since I heard late yesterday. And it is super a credit to all of you as passionate Seahawks fans for buying a book from, a small independent like me and getting it on that list. I'm telling you, that is not something that happens very often. Like, it's just not. And there's a lot of things. I was trying to do I don't really know much about the New York Times bestseller list, but like, I did a little research to figure out, like, how do they come up with it? And I mean, it's crazy. I don't know. I don't have the words. For someone who's now an author, a New York Times bestselling author. I do not have the words to articulate how this has happened, but I'm really, really appreciative of all of you. I also, this is embarrassing and on brand, but I've been telling you where you can buy it. Hawkblogger.com/book. Easy to remember. Hawkblogger.com/book. Well, the publisher, that takes you to the publisher site where you can buy it. It hasn't been allowing you to buy it for I don't know how long. So I found that out yesterday, and I was like, guys, like, somehow we're a New York Times bestseller. We're not allowing people to buy the book. Like, can we turn that back on? So it is now available again to buy at hawkblogger.com/book if you were frustrated trying to buy it before. So really, really grateful. Appreciate all of you for doing that. And then also want to remind you, if you haven't gone over to simplyseattle.com, great time to do it. Use code HawkBlogger15, gets you 15% off your order of all your best Seahawks, Mariners, Huskies, whatever your favorite Seattle sports, Torrent, Kraken. Go over there. HawkBlogger15 is your code to get 15% off. I will also let you know they're opening a new store in the University District, and I think they're doing a grand opening Saturday. Ernest Jones is going to be there. They asked if I could be there, but I unfortunately have to drive down to Portland for a memorial service. One of my high school buddies passed away unexpectedly, and so I got to be down there this weekend. Doesn't mean you guys can't go though. So if you haven't, check it out. It should be really fun, and they do a great job there at Simply Seattle. Really, really cool people. All right, let me get to some super chats, and then I will talk about the guys that are left. I don't know if this is meant to be a joke, and I don't mean to laugh. I'm not laughing at you, but the question here is: any chance we can land Bijan Robinson in a trade? No, no chance. I love the idea. He's probably my favorite player outside of the Seahawks to watch play, but no way. Tizo TD says on the PFF's mock draft, Seahawks draft needs don't have edge anymore. Does PFF know something we don't? Thoughts? I mean, I don't know. I don't know what it means. Edge is a need for this team. I think that I really like Jared Ivey and Connor O'Toole. I think the team does as well. I think there's a chance that they could really blossom next year, and you could have this awesome, cool young edge crew of Derek Hall and Jared Ivey and Connor O'Toole, and maybe you draft another guy as well. I still think it makes sense to extend Uchenna Nwosu, depending on what happens over the next few weeks. And let's just hope DeMarcus Lawrence doesn't retire. So I don't know. I don't know what PFF's thinking. We'll have Trevor Sikkema on at some point. We'll talk to him about it and get his perspective. Colin Lundstrom says 2 words: Jacardier Wright will be vindicated. Yeah, I do like Jacardier Wright. I would not build an offseason plan for running back off of an undrafted rookie who's never taken a snap in the NFL, but I do like him. Scott Dobson, how much easier is it to choose door number 2 when you have 12 picks next year to trade up a few spots if you need to? Well, I want to make clear, if you choose door number 2, which again is waiting till the draft to try to address your running back position, seeing who you get, seeing who other people get, which I think is a viable strategy, you're not going to be able to use next year's draft picks to trade up in this year's draft. Well, I mean, you could. So that's probably what you're getting at, Scott. I'm talking myself into it now. All right. If you know you're going to have 12 picks, then yes, you could use some of next year's draft picks to move up this year to make a selection. And I know it's going to show up somewhere here, probably a super chat about it, about whether that means that they're going to draft Love from Notre Dame. I'm going to be cold water on that, and unless it happens, like all the way up until it happens. I don't believe. How many times has John Schneider ever traded up in the first round? Let's take a quick look. I don't think I have this somewhere. I'm going to try asking a different way. Okay. I'm going to see if I can figure this out really quick, but I don't believe John Schneider has ever traded up in the first round, let alone gone from 32 to the top 10. The amount of draft capital you would have to commit to trade up to do that. And Love is going to go in the top 10. He might go in the top 5. Yeah, he's never traded up. He's traded up in the second round quite a bit. That could be a Jadarian Price thing. That could be maybe a Mike Washington thing or someone else that they like. But I think Love is not an option. So yes, it could be something that factors into that. Good call out. Whoa, did that. Do you think it made us look bad to free agent running backs because we didn't pay K9 after winning Super Bowl MVP? That's an interesting question. No, I don't think it matters. Money talks. Playing for a Super Bowl winning team, playing for a team that's run oriented, playing for a team that's got a good young offensive line. Nah, I don't think that would deter any free agent running back from coming here. Things that might deter a free agent running back from coming here is Seattle. Like, a lot of people don't want to live here. They don't want to come all the way up to the Northwest. It's like South Alaska, as Matt Hasselbeck used to say. And these guys are from the Southeast or the East Coast, and it's a foreign area to them. So all they hear about is that it rains all the time. And when you're a free agent, you get the most control over where you land. Dave J says, I'm still struggling with the decision to not resign Kenneth Walker, given he is explosive, tough yards, ball security. And at the celebration, John Schneider stated that he wanted him back. Moving on, how about a 1-year flyer on Zamir White? The Las Vegas line sucked. I don't know if I know Zamir White. I'd have to look him up a little bit. But off the top of my head, I don't know a lot about him. So we can take a look. It's Zeke. YT says, my issue particularly, and a lot of what I see on X, is that we have like 3 running back 3s and no real running back 2s. And I, for one, am not very high on Charbonnet's ceiling, especially coming off an ACL injury. I think that's a reasonable way to look at it. I think it's totally fair. I think that, to me, George Halani is a fine running back too. If Zach Charbonnet was like your number 1 back and Halani was your second back, honestly, I would not be that upset about it. I think Halani's got plenty to offer in that role. They're just like, it's not much of a change of pace. And so that's where Velus Jones to me is interesting, because he supplies a little juice that you don't get elsewhere. But yeah, I see what you're saying. I have largely the same concerns, but I have to at least acknowledge that this could be the way the Seahawks are seeing it. That the guys they have in-house are good enough. They might know something we don't. They certainly know things that we don't. BY says, went to visit my mom yesterday. One of the first things she said to me is, you have to see this cool book at Costco. Guess what was sitting on her coffee table? Man, I love that. I love that. That's so funny, man. Thank you. All right. Yeah, it's been flying off the shelves at Costco. Like, it's been flying off the shelves. I did get that much information from my publisher. So that's pretty cool. All right. So let's talk for a little bit about guys that are still available and who has at least a little bit of my attention. Rachaad White, we've talked about a fair amount. I'm not super enthusiastic about Rachaad White, but this is a guy that has had a number of carries, is at least a running back 2, and would create a floor for your team in the running back room. I don't think he's not a explosive runner. And I feel like that's something that you're missing right now, is the explosiveness out of the backfield. I don't think he solves that. So he's an option. He's been linked to Seattle. The Seahawks could also be trying to slow play this, because maybe the teams that need running backs haven't done it, have already done it and don't need to add. I'm going to skip over a lot of guys that I just don't think are interesting, old, not just like not interesting. Like, I'm not a Joe Mixon or a Najee Harris or Austin Eckler, like Nick Chubb. Like, nope, not interested in any of those guys. I mean, I guess we have to talk about Jerome Ford, don't we? I don't really want to, but let's do it. So Jerome Ford played for the Browns for 4 years and has started 18 games and has had some good moments. Back in 2023, he carried 200 times for 813 yards and 4 touchdowns. In 2024, he averaged over 5 yards per carry. And he's had a 50-yard run in his career, 26. Like, he's had a couple explosive runs. His success rate in 2024 was 47%, which isn't terrible. And as a receiver, I mean, he's had a lot of receptions. Like, he's been a pretty effective pass catcher. He had 26 receptions last year, 37 the year before that, 44 the year before that. And in 2023, that year where he had 44 receptions, he had 5 receiving touchdowns to go with 4 rushing touchdowns. So he's also gotten in the end zone quite a bit, at least back then. He's only 26 years old. And, you know, last year he just had 24 carries. Like, so he's an option. I'm not super excited about him, but he's an option. And let me do a quick look back to the 2024 season on the PFF side and see. Let's get a little bit more information about Jerome Ford. Okay. So interestingly, in 2024, he was the 18th graded running back by PFF. He was ahead of David Montgomery, ahead of Zach Charbonnet. He had an 80.3 rushing grade, which is good. It's very good. And interestingly as well, his yards after contact per attempt was 3.5 yards, which was top 20. This is good. His breakaway rate, 45%, 7 carries of more than 15 plus yards. That's also really good. So I don't think you can. He's not the most exciting option. There were some times that the like fantasy fans and Cleveland fans were pretty high on Jerome Ford. But you know, I don't know. Like this is probably a guy that you could wait on till after the comp pick formula deadline in April 27th and still probably sign. Another name that I think you've got to talk about is Brian Robinson Jr. This guy played for the 49ers last year. He has had years for the Commanders where he was their number one option. I thought he was actually at times a more dangerous runner than Christian McCaffrey last year for the 49ers. Brian Fleury, who is your new offensive coordinator, knows him, was in rooms with him. And you can guarantee that John Schneider, if they have any interest, will talk to Brian Fleury about him. The guy clearly fits into this scheme as he just played for Kyle Shanahan. So there's some logic there. The challenge with Brian Robinson, at least for me, is why, like, he's been pretty good. Why did the Commanders really move on? And the 49ers had him for one season. They're moving on. Is there something about him as a fit personality-wise that might not be a fit in Seattle? I don't know. I do not know him. I haven't heard anything, but that at least gives me a little bit of pause. The other thing that gives me a little bit of pause is his grade in PFF has gone down every year. 82.5 as a rookie, 75.3 second year, 71.9 third year, 69.9 last year. Don't love that trend. I see him as just a really physical runner. I like his running style. He's aggressive. He is not really a breakaway threat, not generally. So I don't know. I think he's got to be someone that you consider. Again, he's a floor raiser. I like him. Like, to me, I like him as a runner better than I like Rachaad White personally. To me, the question is, like, personality, does he fit? That's my main hesitation there. Otherwise, I think he's a fine option. Then, so here's Zamir White. Since someone asked about him, I do not know Zamir White. Let me look him up real quick. I will never pretend I know somebody. There's the funniest thing that happened to Aaron Wilson. It's like my worst nightmare. You guys are probably going to get me on this at some point, but I won't say what the name was, but someone made up a name of a college prospect and said, "Do you think this guy would be a good fit?" And it was a crude fake name. Think about, old prank call names. And he just pretended he knew the guy. He's like, "Yeah, I think that guy would be a good fit." And it's going all over the Twitter. So you could find it if you want. But anyway, I will try to never pretend that I know something that I don't. Zamir White's 26 years old. He's been in the league for 4 years. He has never carried the ball more than 100 times in the NFL, never averaged over 4.3 yards per carry, has been under 3 yards per carry the last 2 years. Why are we interested in Zamir White? I don't know. This isn't getting me particularly. I think the comment was that the Raiders' offensive line was really bad, but under 3 yards a carry is under 3 yards a carry, man. I'm not super interested. There's some other names that have some interest to me here, but not a lot. There's this name here though. And I got a couple feelers. Whoa, what just happened? I've got a couple feelers out about Amari DiMercato. Now, this is kind of a mystery to me, I will admit, because if you look at Amari DiMercato's numbers, they're kind of crazy good. Like they're crazy good. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. So he has been behind the depth chart of, James Conner in Arizona, and then Trey Benson, who they drafted. He played 3 years there. He's 5'9", 215 pounds. So it's not that he seems small, but he's actually reasonably big. And he has never carried the ball. He carried the ball 58 times as a rookie. But his yards per attempt, 5 yards per attempt as a rookie, 9.3 yards per attempt second year, and 7.1 yards per attempt last year. His career average is 6.5 yards per attempt. That's ridiculous. That's part of what I was interested with Keaton Mitchell. And I think, if I'm remembering right, he might have been the guy that dropped the ball before he went into the end zone and that kind of thing. Whatever. That's I don't care about that. That's not a reason to not have a guy on your team. He's also he's primarily been used as a receiver out of the backfield. He's been pretty good there as well. And if you look at some of the PFF numbers, I mean, he led the NFL last year in yards after contact per attempt, 5.5 yards after contact per attempt. That's ridiculously good. It's low numbers. It's 44 carries, so I'm not going to go crazy. But he also had a 57% breakaway percentage. 57% of his carries were longer than 15 yards. That's an insane number. So I'm at least curious about Amari DiMercato. I'm not saying I'm not as sure about him as I am about Keaton Mitchell, because I've seen Keaton Mitchell in games do some crazy things, and he was behind a guy like Derrick Henry and some other options. So I kind of get that. But I mean, Amari DiMercato, they have this thing called the elusive rating on PFF, which looks at missed tackles forced, whether you're a receiver or a runner. And Amari DiMercato had an 87.2 elusive rating. That was higher than Ken Walker's. I mean, Ken Walker was 83.5, which is very, very, very good. Zach Charbonnet was 80.4, which is also very good. Jahmyr Gibbs was 80.1. To give you some idea, he had a pretty damn good elusive rating. He reminds me a little bit of Jaylen Warren for the Steelers. And so I'm curious about him. I'm not going to tell you he's the next great thing, but I am curious about him. And then we've talked about Sean Tucker, who was tendered by the Bucs. So you can make an offer to him, and you don't have to give up any draft capital to get him. But the Bucs have the opportunity to match it. So that's the catch there. And the Bucs can at any time rescind that offer. They could sign him. So Sean Tucker may not be an option, even if I would like him to be. So that's a look at kind of that's a look at who still is available on the free agent market. Looking through here, sorry, because when I'm on the other, someone asked how old is Amari DiMercato. He is 27. 27, just turned 27 in January. Looking through chat, because when I'm on that other page, I don't see it. I see people saying, like, give me Mike Washington Jr. from Arkansas in the draft. I get it, but like, you cannot go into a draft where there's like one or two guys that you're hoping to get at a position that you don't have a starter at. That is a playing with fire. So I just that is what gets you to like push a guy way up your draft board for need, and that's where a lot of the mistakes have happened for the Seahawks in the past. So yes, it would be great if you can get Mike Washington or you can get Jadarian Price or something like that, but I just don't think you can count on it. All right, let me just check, see if there's anything else before I get back into this. I'm going to talk a little bit about some trade options, but I'm not going to go deep here. Got a super chat from Henry Smith, says, hi, Mr. Blogger. Hello. What I'm most worried about is not giving first-time OC the weapons he deserves like Clint had. Think we need another safety, cornerback, edge, running back. I mean, not giving him the weapons. He's got the offensive player of the year. Like, JSN's pretty good. Torrey Horton's pretty good. Rashid Shaheed's pretty good. AJ Barner's good. Elijah Arroyo's good. I think he's got a lot of weapons. And yes, I would love to have a running back weapon. That's what we're talking about. But to imply that the Seahawks, who are the third highest scoring team in the NFL, who have lost one starter, are somehow now not talented, I disagree with that strongly. Yeah. Appreciate the super chat, though. Thank you for that. All right. So let me bring this back up for a second, because there's another way to look at this, which is to look at it and say, which of the teams that have added running backs? And you can look at the Chiefs, the Jets, the Saints, the Broncos, the Cowboys, the Bucks, the Steelers, the Cardinals, the Jags, the Chargers, the Lions, and say, like, do they have backs on their roster that might be interesting? And the one that I've brought up before that makes the most sense to me is the Saints adding Travis Etienne. They've got Alvin Kamara. And it makes sense to me that he's going to be available. And he's older. He's like in his 30s, was not as productive last year. But I'd be fine with Alvin Kamara as a stopgap for 1 year. A guy that'd be very motivated to go and win a Super Bowl for the first time and play for a winning team for really the first time, at least in a long time. And he's not that far removed from being a really productive runner. Like 2024, rushed for 950 yards, had 6 TDs on the ground. Also had, do I have his, let me bring him up here. Alvin Kamara. Yeah, he is 30 years old. And how many receiving touchdowns did he have? Yeah, a couple. So he had 8 touchdowns in 2024. And I think he's a good player. I don't think he is the player he was, but I would not hate this. I think you're talking about very low trade compensation to get a player like him, like a 6th round pick or something like that. And I think he's worth it to do something like that. And that would give you an opportunity to have a veteran in the room and then see if the other guys beat him out. And if they do, so be it. Like, you won't have invested that much. But I think he's an option as somebody to keep an eye on. Let me look. There's another way to look. There's a cap casualty thing that they do on Over the Cap. Let me try to pull this up real quick. Over the Cap casualty. So let me take a look at this. If you haven't already given the show a like, now would be a great time to do that. So this was published January 8th by Nick Corti. So there's guys that are going to be added to this list, but I'm going to look specifically at the running back position. He has got DeAndre Swift as a potential for the Bears. Josh Jacobs for the Packers. I don't think that doesn't seem realistic. I mean, I'd love to add Josh Jacobs. That would rise to the top of the list for me. Tony Pollard. I don't think so. People keep saying that they think Tajay Spears is going to be available. I don't see why he would be. They list Alvin Kamara as a likely availability. Aaron Jones was just had his deal restructured, so he's not going anywhere. I think Devin Singletary had his deal reworked. James Conner had his deal reworked. Joe Mixon's been cut. And that's the list that they've got for cap casualty. But I think these kind of lists will be updated again soon. But that's probably a different show, to be honest. Like, we got to get a little further in to things, but trade for a guy is another option that could show up. So this has been a tedious, maybe, process through how this could work. And I'll just recap for you. Like, this can be door number one. A lot of the options are gone. If you're going to sign a guy in free agency, pretty much all the best options are gone. Rachaad White's still there. For me, doesn't get me super excited, but at least as a guy, you can say, yep, we're comfortable that we have a floor of how the running back room is going to look. Door number two is you actually don't really address this position until the draft and after the draft. And you look to see if you get anybody, and you look to see if other teams get guys that allow them to make players on their current roster available via trade. And then you either sign guys that are still available that don't count against the comp pick formula after April 27th, or you make trades. That's an option as well. It is looking more and more like the Seahawks might be thinking door number two, but who knows? Like, this could change at any time. Even during this show, it could have changed. I'm looking. Oh, look at this. Catherine Terrell. Saints. Kellen Moore said he expects Kamara to be back. He says, we'd like to go through that process, certainly. And so we feel, obviously, we know Alvin means a lot to us. Again, we're 3 days into this thing. We signed Travis, and we'll go through that process. That does not sound that committed, to be honest. Yeah. So that's where we are. We'll find out as things go. Appreciate everybody taking some time to hang with me today. And I see there's 2 super chats. Let me get to those before we head out of here. James Cooper says, thoughts on Cam Jordan, 10.5 sacks last year. I know he's older, but he could help provide pass rush if D-Law retires as a cheap option if he's willing. Personally, I am way more interested in Von Miller. I think Cam Jordan, I think, really slowed down last year. And yes, he had the nice sack total, but when I was watching him, he just wasn't the same player he had been in the past. So at least for me, if you're going to go old pass rusher, I would prefer Von Miller. But I wouldn't rule it out. The guy is an amazing competitor and certainly would be very, very motivated if he came to Seattle. Trey Jones, would you trade all 4 picks this year to move up to get Love? Oh my God, guys. I don't know how many times I'm gonna have to answer this one. No, no, the running back position is not important enough to trade all your draft picks. No. And it's not gonna happen. Even if I think so or you think so, like John Schneider does not trade up in the first round. He's never ever done it. I there's like the amount of draft. I don't even know. Honestly, I don't think all 4 picks would be enough to trade up from 32 to the top 10. So people keep bringing this up, but it's a pipe dream. And if it turns out to happen, you guys have all these clips of me telling you it's not, and you can have fun with me about that. But give it up. Give up the dream. Well, you know what? No, I will never tell someone to give up a dream. Dream if you choose. I am highly, highly skeptical that it will happen. All right, folks, that will do it for this edition of Hawk Blogger Mornings. Hope you have a great rest of your Thursday. Take care.